What massively improved your mental health? Realizing at 41 that my anxiety, depression, PTSD, short temper, irritation at repetitive noises, frustration with crowds, dislike of people breaking minor rules, difficulty sleeping, constant confusion about people's intentions, ability to hyperfocus, strong attachment to routines, identification with animals, dedication to personifying inanimate objects, extreme exhaustion after social gatherings, constant tiredness, frequent anger, drinking, and constant sense of loneliness and not belonging were autism. I did a few things. The first was to follow a few neurodiverse people and accounts on Instagram. They had some great resources. Then I read Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devin Price, and it was a complete eye-opener. I've been heavily masked all my life. I put aside time to read the diagnostic criteria in the DSM and looked for and read more papers, quizzes, etc. I'm self-diagnosed. Right now I don't have the money or time to go to a professional. I've been in therapy all my life, and where I live, it would be an 18 to 24-month wait to get an official diagnosis. I have other plans for the thousands of dollars this would cost. I no longer work full-time, so money is tight. More importantly, I also object to being assessed using nothing more than cultural standards that supposedly define normal. There's no laboratory test or brain scan I can get. I just need to be observed against the criteria and answer questions. These are things I can do myself. A lot of people say those in the spectrum of trouble making eye contact. I know I hate doing it, but I force myself to do it. How much eye contact is normal? No one can tell me. Yet my apparent inability to get it right makes me abnormal. I reject that line of thinking because it is telling me there's a rule I violate, yet it cannot identify the rule. It makes me feel like I'm defective, and I know I'm not. I'm just a bit unusual, and that's okay. Having the language and understanding of myself has already helped immeasurably. I have explanations for why I feel or do things. That means I can think about solutions to things like I hate noisy places or I find crowds irritating, and I feel extremely confused right now. Knowing this about myself saved my marriage. Hands down, no doubt about it. A lot of what works for me is rest, reducing irritating input, e.g. wearing headphones, switching to soft utensils like silicone spatulas to do something like dish up food. I hate the clinking of a metal utensil on a dish, and accepting that I need to manage my energy carefully. I do a lot fewer things each day than I used to. I'm trying to stop self-censoring and I'm unpacking a lot of shame. It's hard work. My diagnosis came with a lot of grief and woundedness that none of my therapists or adult in charge ever saw in me. Yet I fit the criteria so well. How could this have been missed? I believe that my being female, fairly articulate, heavily masked, having a university degree, working corporate full-time and being married played into this heavily. On paper, I sound normal. If you meet me, you'll notice I'm a bit blunt, a bit of a people-pleaser, and can have deep interests that others might find dull. But if I'm alone and feel comfortable by myself, I stim, vocalize, have meltdowns, and exhibit all sorts of other much more obvious traits. I just got very, very good at hiding them from others. Story 2. Towards the end of 2019, just 4 days shy of my 27th birthday, I faced a heartbreaking loss when my partner passed away. At that time, I was also expecting a child. Looking back, I realized our relationship wasn't healthy. Back then, he meant everything to me. I was overwhelmed with grief and I had to make the toughest decision about terminating. In the following years, I developed drinking problems as I struggled to find my place in the world. I found myself in a series of relationships that didn't bring me happiness, as I attracted partners who couldn't understand the pain and fear I carried inside. I became skilled at hiding my emotions, only to have them resurface when I drank. I'm deeply thankful for the unwavering support of my family and a few incredible women who stood by my side through it all. Along the way, I encountered some unkind strangers, but I learned to understand that everyone is fighting their own battles. Amidst the challenges, I found solace in the kindness of those who saw past my pain and helped me on my journey to healing. While navigating through this difficult period, I was fortunate to meet a special man with a gentle and understanding heart. It's often said that everything happens for a reason, but the truth is much more complex than that. So here's what helped me get through it. Number 1, fix your mentality. That does not mean burying it away. It means to stop saying you're the one to blame for some mystical power of the universe and accept that you and only you have the power to change. The universe is not happening to you. You are happening to the universe. Number 2, don't run or hide from your problems. Everyone deserves a grace period to get it out of their system, but do not get caught in the trap of denying your pain and saying you're fine when you're not. Booze, substances, and finding company in random people will only keep you from truly healing. You must confront and deal with your problems head on. That means going completely sober, sitting with yourself alone in a room, finding that right counseling, journaling, learning about yourself and getting to the root of the issues as much as it can be the most excruciatingly painful thing you can do. It's that bravery that gets you unstuck. Number 3, I never gave up. This is the most important. If you give up and fall into the trap of, oh, my life is so crappy, nothing good ever happens, why me? Behavior, then you will simply never find peace and happiness. To outsiders, it probably looked like I kept falling for a while, but failure means nothing if you pick yourself back up and eventually win. There's an ebb and flow to life, and if you can ride the ups and downs, you start believing in good times even when they're bad. Number 4, be grateful for everything. You know you have come out of the other side when you wouldn't change a single thing. Every bad moment taught me a beautiful lesson, made me strong, and made me vibrant and ready to accept myself, love myself, and appreciate this one life I have. And also, sleep, exercise, meditation, and a good diet. Story 3. Realizing that, in most instances, I wasn't responsible for the feelings of others took a lot of self-blame off my shoulders. An example that happened to me today, I asked my significant other if they wanted me to bring them lunch to work. They said yes, so I did. When they saw what I brought, they were immediately frustrated because I brought something they didn't want. Usually, I would blame myself for this because, having grown up in a very critical, judgmental, perfectionist family or community, this was my immediate natural response. But my partner could have at any point texted me and told me exactly what they wanted, or if they weren't feeling a particular food. So I exercised my newfound mentality. It was incredibly hard not to start crying, mentally roughing myself up and shutting down. I didn't let his bad attitude ruin my mood. Eventually, he apologized and said he realized he could have cleared things up before I showed up with lunch and that he appreciated my thoughtful surprise, even if it wasn't what he was craving. Another example is at work. We wanted to revamp a process that affects how we take payments. The boss wanted it done and implemented it right away. I strongly voiced my opposition and reason why it needed to be a slow rollout. Lo and behold, it's kind of a mess, and not only did it put everyone behind on their other projects, but it also caused us to lose a small amount of money and waste a bunch of time. The boss was upset and trying to share the blame because they didn't like the results, but an emergency on their part due to their own poor planning does not constitute an emergency on my part. It doesn't mean I did a terrible job or that I'm a lousy employee. And one more, I decided to get a piercing when I was 23. My mom hated it, and she was unreasonably distraught. Her causing herself grief over a fashion decision that I, a grown adult, made is not something I can control, nor is it something I should give myself credence to. Why would I make myself feel lousy over something that I truly wanted to do and think looks good on me, just because she personally doesn't like piercings? Obviously, there's a limit to this. My friend's sister made a lot of questionable decisions and refused to let go of substances, even after much family support and offers of help, even when her family made no contact. That was a decision she made herself, even after a respectful and hard conversation. So yeah, it was her fault that her family abandoned her. As long as your actions or words weren't done in a deliberately hurtful way, it's not your fault how others choose to react. Story 4. I used to struggle a lot with anxiety, to the point where I panicked on a daily basis. My self-esteem was rock bottom and I found myself stuck in a cycle of unhealthy habits. I was jealous of others, angry at the world, and often ended up crying myself to sleep at night. Thankfully, I decided to make some changes, and these habits have helped me turn things around in a big way. First off, I started therapy, which was a game changer. I was fortunate that my parents could afford it, and it really helped me manage my anxiety and see things from a different perspective. I stuck with it for about a year, and it made a huge difference. I also made sure to prioritize my physical health. Getting enough sleep, drinking plenty of water, and eating balanced meals became my top priorities. I focused on foods that were good for me, like grains, nuts, and fiber, and cut way back on sugar. I even started taking a daily shot of kefir for gut health and a multivitamin to cover any nutrient gaps. And I pretty much cut out booze, only indulging occasionally in social settings. As for exercise, I made it a point to move my body every day. I started training for a marathon and doing calisthenics workouts a few times a week. Instead of focusing on how my body looked, I focused on being strong and healthy. I also worked on being more proactive with my friendships, reaching out to make plans and organize get-togethers. In the past, I used to feel jealous and resentful when friends hung out without me, but now I understand that I need to make an effort too. Journaling has been a big help when I start feeling down. I've cut back on stuff, which tends to trigger my tendencies. Instead, I channel that energy into my fitness goals. Sure, I still have my slip-ups now and then. I might fall back into old habits or have days where my anxiety gets the best of me, but I have learned to be kind to myself and focus on the progress I've made. And having a supportive girlfriend who's into mindfulness and wellness has been a huge help too. Story 5. Cheating on my wife. Let me explain. I was a stay-at-home dad in a new city where we had moved so my wife could pursue a promotion. She worked 14-hour days for about a year after achieving it. The area was very conservative, and I struggled to find friends. I fell into a deep depression and spent 3 years in therapy. Eventually, I started working, but I still felt worthless. Then my wife found a stay-at-home mom group, and I joined. 2 years later, I met another woman who was in a similar situation, and we became fast friends. An affair ensued. My wife noticed the change immediately, commenting on how upbeat and chipper I seemed all of a sudden. Weeks turned into months, and my wife hardly even noticed that we weren't having relations anymore. After about 4 years, my girlfriend passed away. That was close to 10 years ago now. The affair was disclosed in therapy, and I've never felt the urge to cheat again. The affirmation I received was valuable, and being wanted by someone was all I needed. My wife and I are retired now, and we spend all of our time together. My affair allowed me to maintain a healthy mental state until she accomplished her professional goals and didn't have time for me. It's not a story I usually tell because most people can't get past their own feelings of betrayal. I wish I'd met her sooner, so I wouldn't have had to spend years depressed. I also give my wife credit for understanding that I never intended to betray or hurt her, and I wasn't dissatisfied with our relationship. I needed companionship at that time in my life. She has actually said she feared I was going to hurt myself. She has also said she never wanted me to cheat but is glad I took care of my own needs and can be here with her now. I did not see that coming. Even improving mental health has its twists and turns. If you're up for more unexpected stories, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. Story 6. I worked my way into a job that pays me enough to live. I'm no longer living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not loaded, but for a single guy like myself with no college education, it's solid. I live alone and recently bought a brand new car, financed. I'm able to afford things that improve my quality of life instead of just scraping by at the bare minimum. Money can't buy happiness, no, but it helps. I changed my diet and mostly stopped drinking. I still do, lightly and socially, but I don't keep any at home. It's a depressant. Furthermore, I've started eating more whole foods and cooking at home a lot more. You are what you eat, so eat well. On that note, certain supplements can help. I take something called ashwagandha. It's an herbal supplement, which some people feel a certain way about, but every time I start taking it, I'm genuinely surprised by how much better I feel. It's one of the few supplements that have really helped. I recommend it. A 3-month supply can be bought for under $15. Also, keeping a clean home is huge. I'm not meticulous, but I like being tidy. Bed sheets get changed every week, dishes are washed daily, counters are wiped down, and floors are vacuumed or swept once every week or two. We humans are a product of our environment, like it or not, so be as clean and organized as you can be. It keeps some of the inner demons at bay. Tea is great. There's something therapeutic about it, and a daily habit can be meditative. Also, exercise. I struggle to find the motivation, but every time I finish even a quick 15-minute bodyweight workout in my living room, I feel better. Take a long walk around the neighborhood. Our bodies are made to be moved. Do it. It's something. Story 7. I understand it's a blanket statement, but getting the basics right helped me hugely. Here's a list of things I make sure I do every day, and does personally help me a lot. Number 1. Make my bed as soon as I wake up. Number 2. Keep my house clean. Do not put off chores that take under 5 minutes to complete. Number 3. Have a shower every day. No exceptions. Number 4. Do some kind of physical activity. For me, it's the gym. Number 5. Limit social media usage to what you see as reasonable. Number 6. Make an effort with your skin routine or brushing teeth. Number 7. Socialize throughout the day with colleagues. Try and arrange some time each week to see friends or family. Number 8. Try and achieve a small thing every week. Reading a few pages of a book, working on something creative, or finding a hobby. Number 9. Treat yourself like you would look after a friend or child who is not well. A lot of people seem to treat others better than they would treat themselves. Number 10. Have time to reflect on the day or week. Most importantly, take small first steps. Can't bring yourself to go to the gym? Have a small walk in your garden. Don't have a passion for anything? Try something new or visit a new place. Sick of being stuck on social media? Install an app that limits your usage. It's hard at first and you won't see results straight away, but I promise little steps over the course of a year will turn your life around. I like to see my life as momentum. If I make small, good decisions, then the ball starts rolling. I don't want the ball to stop rolling, so I carry on making more small, good decisions, which compound into bigger and better decisions. The larger the ball gets and the more momentum I have. Obviously, we all have days or weeks where you will lose momentum, but the key is to try and keep the ball rolling no matter how many times you get knocked off track. Story 8. Stop negotiating. Growing up, my best friend would criticize everything about me. My hair, my clothes, my interests, even the girls I liked. I knew he thought he was helping me, but it was pretty toxic. The parents were similar in some ways, but different in others. They had a more passive-aggressive approach, but it boiled down to the same thing. Criticizing my clothes, my haircut, the way I parented, and how much money I made. My mother couldn't sit in a room for more than 2 minutes without turning to me and saying, "So aren't we going to talk about how you suck with X?" So I just stopped going along with it. Recently, I was telling my friend a story and he started complaining about how long it was. I probably talked for a couple of minutes and he said, "Bro, get to the point." I told him he asked about it and this is how long it's taking me. If he can't pay attention, let's talk another time. My mother recently screwed something up with regard to my kid. I told her I didn't feel comfortable with him going over unless I was there, or she acknowledged she needed to follow my directives despite her own opinions. She told me I betrayed her and didn't appreciate what was done for me. I responded, "I'm sorry you feel that way. Part of me still has anxiety, but it's tiny compared to the relief I feel." Yep, expect resistance when you set boundaries and don't let people take advantage of you. With some patience and luck, they might adjust and accept your limits if they truly value you. If not, it's a sign you may need to distance yourself from them. However, I believe in giving people a chance to change, until they show otherwise, and perhaps they'll understand and respect your boundaries. Story 9. It took a holistic approach for me, adopting a healthy lifestyle. Sleep is so overlooked, but having a healthy circadian rhythm is crucial. A clean diet and some regular exercise take you the rest of the way. No substances, limited booze, occasions, limited screen time, and more activities, especially the outdoors type. Worked on past trauma. I saw a counselor for a few sessions, not quite a psychologist, but it helped a lot with saying things I needed to say and moving forward. I didn't have anything super traumatic, otherwise this would be number 1. Added value through knowledge. I definitely started reading more, and eventually I went back to school and got my bachelor's degree. This helped my career prospects and further added to my confidence. I was in Norway at the time, so I finally learned the language. My excuse was that everyone spoke English. Those are what worked for me. Regardless of what specific causes you have, I think there's a hierarchy of needs that need to be met. Start with the physiological and safety needs, work your way up to self-esteem, and finally, the aesthetic and self-actualization bits. There is usually no one right answer, but being mindfully intentional and that you're going to take action to improve your mental health is the best first step. Story 10. Reading for pleasure has improved my mood a lot. It's the ultimate me time. Whether it be an academic article into a topic I'm into, a nonfiction book, or a detective story, or better yet, an anthology of short stories, reading is a great way to relax, and it has reframed the world at a slightly slower pace. For creative work, reading for pleasure also helps with writing or generating new ideas, as we tend to imitate those authors we love best. Also, for new readers or those that haven't gotten into it in the past, audiobooks count, but you have to be engrossed in them. Browse your local library, and ebooks are often far cheaper than physical copies for books you might only read once. And don't be afraid to stop reading a book if you aren't enjoying it. As Eva Marie Saint says in North by Northwest, I don't particularly like the new book I've started. If you feel the same way about a book, read something else. God, I gotta start reading. Story 11. This is going to sound really dumb, but making the bed in the morning. Even if I achieved nothing else that day, I achieved that. Mostly, however, it meant I had one tiny thing to build another tiny thing on top of. Over time, it all adds up, and by the end of a horrible day, it wasn't so bad. But at the end of the week, it was not so bad at all. What it led to was realizing I was down and thinking all I wanted to do was nothing, which isn't actually true. It turns out that being active and engaged and getting stuff done makes my mental well-being much better. Eventually, what I feel in advance will make me happy or doesn't. What I don't want to do actually does. It's weird, not obvious and annoying, but it has totally changed my life. The only way I can summarize it is that happiness is a feeling you only perceive after the event, not during. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and got a little something out of it. If you're up for more life hacks and personal growth, hop over to What Improved Your Life So Much That You Wish You Did It Sooner. Story 1 is an eye-opener. See you there.